Well, good morning, everyone, and buenos dias to our Mexico partners joining us. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this Around the Globe webinar, part of a newly launched Outlook Forum Plus educational platform. This webinar is the first in a series of international spotlights as we look ahead to recovery and the return of international travel in a post-pandemic world. So keep an eye out for additional marketing spotlights in the months ahead. While forecasts project it'll be 5 years before international travel returns to 2019 levels, it is projected that Mexico visitor spending will rebound faster and return to its pre-pandemic levels by 2023, making it a key market for global recovery. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's why we're here today, to start to talk about international recovery. And we hope the information shared provides useful and timely information to inform your marketing and trade strategies. With that in hand, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Leona Reed, our Associate Vice President of Global Marketing. Take it away, Leona.
Thank you, Carolyn, and welcome everyone. Good morning. As Carolyn said, we are very excited to kick off our Around the Globe series on the Outlook Forum Plus platform with Mexico market. Mexico is not only our neighboring country, but it's also part of California's past, present, and definitely future. Its culture and heritage is very integrated with ours. Also, as Carolyn mentioned, Mexico has been traditionally the largest international market for California, and we see a huge opportunity and potential in the future. And that is what we are hoping to demonstrate here today. The country that used to bring over 7 million consumers, travelers to the Golden State, is showing signs of quick recovery. And we have lined up experts and specialists in their own right to share some data, insights, and projections with you. I'm going to stay true to Outlook Forum platform. And hopefully some of you that are listening this morning have been to Outlook Forum in person, and we do series around the globe. And that's what we're hoping to recreate here. So buckle up, let's take you around the globe. First stop, Mexico. And our first speaker can be anyone else but the Alex Pace, CEO of GMS, the Visit California's marketing and representation agency in market, who's going to do a state of the state for Mexico market for you. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Leona. I could not be more honored to virtually be part of the Visit California Mexico Spotlight, the first of its kind. I'm Alex Pace, Visit California, MD for Mexico, and indeed, it has been one of the most unprecedented and challenging years in our history. Mexico has gone through much this year, as has the United States. However, we're setting in our sight on a brighter and better future, where people could travel again and share those special moments together. And what better place in the world than to California? California and Mexico have gone through, actually have strong history and cultural ties. In spite of the current situation, our brand remained steadfast and strong in the marketplace, and remains more so a desirable and travel destinations for Mexicans. As a matter of fact, the only two countries in the entire world that never see zero travel were Mexico and the United States. Although border cross has been limited to solely essential travel, and it will be in effect until April 22nd, we look forward to a change in that as well. Furthermore, the aspiration for consumers to go on road trips and explore California outdoors will be key in the motivational travel activation. Family travel will continue to be significant and a vital segment of our industry. Mexico will be one of the first and fastest market to reactivate international travel to California. We're very optimistic that the future of our industry is coming back stronger than ever. With that, I would like to thank our CEO, Caroline Beteta, and the entire California team for her leadership and guidance during these hard times. Additionally, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the stellar first-class speakers from our industry to the Visit California Mexico Spotlight. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Alex. That was a great setup, a great primer. And I know that our next set of speakers will very much validate some of the themes that you have shared this morning. We are incredibly data and insights rich as an industry, and definitely as organization as at Visit California. And it's fitting that our next content block will provide just that, insights and data. We're going to start with our own Heather Huckeba, Director of Research at Visit California, who will give us an overview of Mexico's visitation and spend. And we'll do a little bit of airlift analysis as well. And right after, Teresa Solis, welcome Teresa, thank you for being here today, Director of Tourism and Regional Development at Deloitte. She'll share most recent Mexico's consumer sentiment towards travel. I'm very excited about hearing some of her insights. So with that, let's start with you, Heather.
Terrific. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to give a really high-level overview of some of the data that we're looking at as we monitor return to international marketing. So I'm going to be spotlighting Mexico, but I'm actually going to be sharing with you data that we'll be including in our monthly COVID-19 research dashboard. One of my colleagues will put a link in the chat. So every month you can come back to our dashboard and take a look and see where the numbers are at for Mexico, as well as for California's top origin markets, international markets. So let's get started. For over a year since the pandemic started, we've been looking at the crisis and understanding the recovery process through three lenses. We first and foremost understand that we have to understand the state of the public health crisis. At the start, we were really looking at cases, testing rates, deaths. Thankfully, since the end of last year, we now are also looking at vaccination rates and all of the optimism and promise that vaccination brings. The next layer that we're looking at is the economic crisis. How has the pandemic weighed down GDP, and how quickly will GDP return for international markets, understanding the currency exchange rates. So in terms of the economic crisis, our forecast from Tourism Economics really gives the best high-level summary of where they think travel will be, based largely on those macroeconomic conditions. And then the final layer is consumer sentiment, which is influenced by public health, is influenced by economics. All these layers are interlinked. But to what degree will consumers feel safe enough and feel confident enough to start traveling again in general and to the USA? And this is where local consumer sentiment could actually create conditions where a country outperforms the forecast or underperforms the forecast. And the same with the public health crisis. We have an expectation of how quickly international travel will return, but the state of public health and consumer sentiment could either speed that further, which is what we hope, or it could depress conditions. Finally, we also just have to be aware of California tourism product readiness. Is California ready to welcome back visitors? Yes. Do international travelers believe that California is ready to welcome back visitors? Okay, so let's start looking at the data, and we're going to start with economic, and we're going to start with looking at the forecast. So this is a 5-year forecast. It includes pre-pandemic 2019, last year 2020, and then looking ahead 5 years to 2025. There's two parts here. On the left, you have the value, the economic impact, the visitor spending to California from different countries, heat map color coded so you can see where the biggest economic impact comes from in the green. On the right, you have the pace of recovery back to 2019 pre-pandemic levels. And so for total, you can see what the average rate of recovery would be. And then right below that for Mexico, you can see the numbers that Mexico will be outpacing the total international recovery every year. So this gives us a good idea of just how important the Mexico market is. And even when in some cases, other markets may be recovering at a faster pace, Mexico still represents the biggest impact in terms of spend. So let's look now. So we move from economic, let's look at some of the public health statistics. So there's a lot going on in this chart. We have case statistics and week over week changes on the top, 7-day deaths per 100,000 on the bottom. This is data from WHO, the World Health Organization. The truth is we know that how different countries collect and report data really varies. So even though we've put all this data on one chart, we can't necessarily compare country to country because of those differences. So we have these two rows of data in between that helps to provide some context to interpreting the case data. It's the tests per 1,000, which gives you an idea of just how much testing is happening in a country. And then you have the tests per case, which gives you an idea really of just how widespread or spreading the coronavirus is within a country. For both of these measures, you want lower numbers indicate more of a problem. So you want higher numbers. If you have lower numbers, then you're going to probably have not enough testing and you have very widespread virus. So looking across here, the one question mark for Mexico, the case numbers are relatively low, but we see that there's relatively low testing and relatively low tests per case. So a little bit of a question mark of exactly how the public health crisis is doing in Mexico. But let's look at vaccines. On the next slide, vaccination rates really vary across the countries. And we have here both the share of population with one or more doses. You can see Mexico at 7.2%. And then the blue numbers below give you, based on the past week rate of deployment, how soon until that country can vaccinate 75% of the population. So here you can see that even though the UK is leading right now, the US at the current rate is expected to actually reach 75% in only 3 months, overtaking the United Kingdom. Mexico at the current rate would be at 75% in 18 months. You can see though that some of these countries, it's going to be years actually at the current rate. And then on top of that, you have possible stumbling blocks like yesterday's Johnson & Johnson announcement in the US. You have AstraZeneca either pausing or changing age distribution. So these numbers have not been updated since those announcements and could depress these rates. Okay, let's move beyond public health. Here's a measure from Brand USA where they're looking at the intent to travel internationally over the next 12 months. Keeping in mind, traveling internationally for European countries may mean they're going to visit other European countries. They may or may not be willing to fly all the way across the ocean to the US. The same with Asian countries. Perhaps there's intent to travel internationally, but this doesn't necessarily tell us if they're going to come to the US. But for Mexico and for Canada, our neighbors, this international intent is much more likely to include US. And actually, we'll see that that's already happening for Mexico. So let's look now at a little bit of airlift capacity. So this is as of February, the blue is the actual absolute capacity, and then the yellow indicates the change year over year. And you can see many of our countries are still 80, 90% below pre-pandemic levels. But here's Mexico at 90% of that capacity has recovered. The other one you see that has recovered over 90% is India. Now, airlift is only half the equation. So let's look at the next part of the equation, which is who's actually in those seats. So we have 90% airlift back. But here, when we look at non-resident arrivals from NTTO, we see that actually Mexico non-resident arrivals are still down, say, or still down 46%, recovered only 55%. So what that means is a lot of this restored air capacity is not just Mexico's coming and visiting us, Mexicans coming and visiting us, but Californians enjoying Mexico culture and food and weather and beaches as well. Now, here's an interesting question. What do Mexico and India have in common? And you can see, other than the fact that both of them have the best restoration of non-resident arrivals, pre-pandemic, both of these countries have the highest VFR, 50% higher than any other country. And so we don't have enough data to 100% confirm that that's part, but that is a strong hypothesis, is that VFR is a big part of why recovery has come back so quickly, because again, we're neighbors and we're family, right? So now let's look at both of these measures, capacity and non-resident arrivals over time. So this is the last thing we're going to look at. Here you can see over time how the recovery in airlift has built. And I've put in there when we had a new testing requirement from the USA to require a negative coronavirus test to enter back into the United States, or to enter into the United States. So you can see that it does look, even with seasonality, since this is year over year comparisons, it does look like after that requirement came in, that capacity took a little bit of hit and came back down. But what's interesting is when we look at the non-resident arrivals on the next slide, we actually see that that has not actually taken a hit after that requirement. Now, NTTO is a little bit slower in reporting, so I only have through February there. But you can see that that testing requirement did not put a dent in non-resident arrivals. I think this could be instructive as we move forward and open more routes to more countries, and how to understand how some requirements could or could not impact travel rates. All right, so I'm going to now turn it over to the rest of the speakers. Are going to go into much more detail, but remember, you can check back every month to see how these numbers are developing month over month in our research dashboard. I'm going to turn it over to Teresa in order to give you a little deeper insights.
Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you for this information. I'm going to share with you a general overview of what is happening in Mexico and what we're looking at regarding Mexican travelers. Of course, the Mexican economy was very badly affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. And as you can see in the next slide, we had, as a country, we had a severe fall in our economic growth, in our annual GDP performance. It was almost -9%. But of course, as it happened in the world, it didn't affect evenly the different sectors. Of course, health, science sector, and telecom even had some growth. The agro industry, food and beverages, kept their pace, but other sectors, manufacturing, and most importantly, construction and tourism, because of the restrictions to movement and to certain activities imposed by governments in Mexico and abroad, they had a very deep fall, the deepest in their history in the case of the travel industry. Next, we're going to see what we have as plans for this year, for 2021. Actually, the forecast for the growth of the economy in Mexico was upgraded very recently. Deloitte's forecast is 4.1% growth in this 2021, which of course is not that much if compared to the big fall last year. This is happening, of course, because of the close connection, interdependent with the US economy, and these economic stimulus packages have given some hope to the Mexican economy for its exports and other sectors that are closely connected, including, of course, travel. So we are expecting better than expected performance at the end of last year. Of course, we have still some risks ahead. We may have a deeper affectation of our industrial production. We may have also a deterioration of the investment climate. Of course, a spike of COVID cases due to new mutations in the virus, and an increase in global risk. But in general, we have a positive outlook for this 2021. Here I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how we are expecting the way back to travel. What we saw last year was, of course, as it was thought, a deep fall in the variation of Mexicans traveling abroad. It went, we had a fall of almost 60% for international travel. And it also, of course, that was for total visitors. And the international tourists fell by 61%, which is consistent with the information that we just saw. And depending on the state, the border tourists and the airlift have a different impact on the different economies in the case of the US as well. Next slide, please. Here I'm going to share with you this state of the consumer tracker, which is an interactive platform that Deloitte developed for 18 countries, including the Mexican market, where every month we're measuring what's the general outlook of consumers and the public regarding different sectors, including travel. First, we have this anxiety index where we see the concerns of people regarding, of course, health issues and financial economic issues. As we can see, Mexicans are still not totally unconcerned about health and finances, but we are in the 7th lowest record in our measurement. This is for the results on March 31st. Then thinking about travel sentiment, well, when we're looking at this anxiety index, we see that most of the concerns are regarding health, and secondly, financial concerns. And they have been going down in the last few weeks, but they have kept it pretty high, particularly if we compare to the results in the US. Still, about 80% of the families are concerned about health in Mexico, versus 50 to 54% in the US, depending on personal health or the family health. And the financial concerns are, of course, much more higher in Mexico, and they have kept steady in the last few weeks. If we go to the next slide, we're going to see how Mexicans feel about travel. And here I'm sharing with you some differences regarding the travel sentiment, how comfortable Mexicans feel about boarding a plane and staying at a hotel for different age groups. Of course, in general, the trend is positive. People are feeling more confident to travel and to stay at accommodations. But we see that the younger generation is the one that is feeling more comfortable jumping onto a plane and also staying in hotels. And it is the mid-section, 35 to 54, those who have families, who are the less likely to be traveling at this stage in time. Next, I'm going to share with you, and this is, I was saying, an interactive tool that can help you in your marketing decisions and your product development decisions, that shows you differences between the groups. What calls our attention the most is in the younger group, how much they are more willing to staying in private accommodation, more willing than in hotels. Also, the interest that they have in international flight, international travel. And finally, it calls our attention how willing they are to experiment, for example, with cruises or with train travel, which is unusual for this generation. So there may be some opportunities in there if we have the right product to offer this age group. Our qualitative findings show us that Mexicans still have this long for travel, particularly for international travel, which maintains an aspirational status. Mexicans want to travel and particularly would like to travel internationally. And given the restrictions in other areas, of course, the US and the closer destinations with affinity for certain topics such as sports, outdoor activities, and also for learning and innovation may be a particular points of interest for international Mexican travelers. Secondly, we see that this advance in vaccination and the testing of passengers when traveling internationally is something that is helping Mexicans recover the trust and feel more comfortable while traveling internationally. Then we see also that there is still this transition period for Mexicans to participate in high density activities, going to retail, to malls, going to cruises and sporting events, though there are, of course, differences between different groups, and the younger generations may be more likely to interact socially. So we find a mixed picture in this transition regarding the different age groups. And also with regards to business travel and the MICE segment, we see that there's still some restrictions from corporations regarding business travel when not indispensable. In the short term, because of risk concerns, when people have not been vaccinated. But also in the midterm, there may be a decrease in business travel because of cost cutting to face this economic downturn. And in the midterm, also carbon emission targets. This is a way, restricting travel is a way to reach both goals for many corporations. We also can see that the home office, online learning, telemedicine, and e-commerce have advanced rapidly during this pandemic in Mexico as a result of COVID. So these changes open new opportunities to develop new high-value experiences, longer stays, different types of maybe family travel, and different types of experiences for the Mexican traveler. And then also, as you know, Mexican travelers are very active shoppers, and the outlook for the exchange rate between Mexican peso and US dollar is positive, that this will encourage travel and shopping travel, and also shopping for when traveling for other purposes. Finally, I'm going to give you some of our conclusions that first, this psychological need for travel is there. It may have actually increased the allure of international travel, but we need to keep watching the trends regarding infections and the advance of the vaccination, because we are still at the stage where we need to recover the trust of people to travel. We are in the trust business, and we need to work together to improve the trust in all our travelers. This interdependence of Mexican and US economies also has caused that the Mexican market behaves more like a local market rather than a long-haul market. So this is interesting for this and for future crises, how we're going to tackle the Mexican traveler and how we need to really team up and facilitate travel, air travel as well as land travel, which is very important for states as California, and how we can take advantage of this advance in digital use and in the use of tools, of technological tools to facilitate travel between our countries. Also, leisure travel, e-shopping is an area that is supporting Mexican activities, and that has to be taken into consideration. And also that needs to be included when we're thinking about business travel and the MICE segment. This may be recovering later, not so much in 2021, but business travel and the MICE sector will be showing some recovery by the end of the year, and particularly in 2022. So there is this clear interest for Mexicans to travel to the US and both for leisure and in the case of Mexico, education and lifelong education is a big purpose of travel to the United States besides what was said, visiting friends and relatives. So these are two big causes for travel that help us point to where we should be focusing our attention regarding a new development of tourism opportunities and thinking that we may have opportunities in having longer stays and learning not only for professional purpose, but also looking at wellness and at a personal interest that people may have. These outdoor activities is a big opportunity that has been developed for Mexicans while staying at home, and it may be a good trigger for travel to California and to the US. So this is our information on this Deloitte State of the Consumer Tracker, and we invite you to check. We are updating this information at the end of each month, so you may be looking at what is happening with the Mexican consumer and consumers in other parts of the world in the following months. And we hope this is useful information for you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Teresa. I really like what you said, Teresa. We are in a trust business, and a lot of what you both presented is true for other international markets, but there were some very unique insights for Mexico market. One, return of the Mexican family. We hope we can rebuild that trust with the Mexican family, and we'll have them back flock into California very soon. We will not pause for questions. This is for the audience. We would love you to start to put your questions in the Q&A window, and then when we get through all of our content, we'll address all of the questions. So now we're going to move to strategy. Influencers are a critical part of our recovery marketing efforts because they create great content. They definitely have an impact over consumers' decision-making process. And they can also provide real-time data, which we've learned during pandemic has been truly critical. Our next guest is no stranger to many of you, or possibly all of you on this webinar, and it's Carlos Lang, a top Mexican content creator and photographer. He is a member of Visit California's Digital Influencer Advisory Board. He's been to California many, many times. And during introductions, I learned that he prides himself in creating amazing content, but also sharing a lot of his knowledge with his followers that are increasing day by day. So take it away, Carlos.
Thank you so much for having me over. Yo soy Carlos Lang, mejor conocido como Care, como Care. Me gusta mucho viajar, es algo que desde muy pequeño he hecho. Es como tanta energía. Si algo no te reta, no te va a cambiar. Enjoy the rest of your day. La vida es el arte del encuentro. Últimos rayos del güero. Una buena foto no se toma, sino se hace. Hey guys, thank you so much for having me over. My name is Carlos Lang. I'm a Mexican photographer and content creator. Wow, it does feel like we're getting closer to the light at the end of the tunnel. I started creating content like 5 years ago after I quit a dream job. I was marketing manager for Uber. So I had the chance to spend a lot of time in California, go to Los Angeles, and spend most of my time in San Francisco. I quit that dream job in the pursuit of a bigger and more personal dream, which was to travel the world, take photographies, and share amazing stories and try to inspire all my audiences. And it went very well. We started collaborating with Visit California, put together a very professional team since a professional video crew. Since I was quitting a dream job, I decided that my next bigger dream had to be very special. So we put together a very proper and solid video team. We started traveling the world. We started sharing amazing places, amazing people, and such and so on. But the thing is that we try to, if we were gonna create content in YouTube, we try to make this small like documentaries where on one side you would see like this road trip we were doing through Death Valley, Yosemite, or different places all around California. But then again, we were also trying to share positive stories, amazing people we would meet along the way, as well as photography tips, content creation tips. And we did very well. We reached 200,000 followers within like year and a half that we through this channel. And now it's been a crazy time since we're all locked down. We cannot travel anymore. And things are changing quite a bit since audiences have been locked down. People don't want to see you on social media just having a good time while everyone is taking care of themselves and their families. So I think things are changing really fast. And people want to go out, but people want to see on social media more things that they can learn. They want to see the safety measures that every destination is taking, that every hotel is taking. People want to start planning more petit comité, for so to say, experiences. They don't want to be in bigger groups. They want to be surrounded only by friends in very special, detailed experiences. So it's been a tricky part to try to plan for the future, since I see all my followers like asking me, hey, where would you want me? Where would you recommend me to go with my family? Where would you recommend me to go with my girlfriend? So I see that people are planning. They might not be all ready to go out there yet, but they're planning. They want to see, they want to learn. So I think this is a very good point that we could all try to take advantage of. And well, that being said, thank you so much for having me over.
Excellent job, Carlos. Thank you so much. And we certainly all hope to see you in California very soon. As Alex earlier reminded us, the US-Mexico air borders have never closed, unlike borders with virtually all other international markets. With Mexican strong intent to travel post-pandemic, we are making sure that we are well integrated and in conversations with our partners from trade industry in Mexico. And just making sure that they have the most updated information about how ready our destination is, again, definitely critical to our success. So the last content block, we're very pleased to have a presence of our two excellent colleagues and guest speakers. First up will be Miguel Aguiñiga, Director of Market Development at Volaris Airlines. Volaris has been quite lucky. They're doing something right. They have seen a spike in their market share and now has 6 California cities connected, more than any other Mexican airline. And the second speaker will be Esteban Velasquez, Vice President of Latin America and Caribbean at Sabre Corporation. Sabre, as you guys all know, it's the main GDS in Mexico and Latin America, functioning as the perfect connection between travel agencies, tour operators, hotels, car rental companies, and airlines. So with that, welcome Miguel and welcome Esteban.
Thank you. How you doing, guys? It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And well, I'm pleased to share with you a couple of data insights. On the first slides, I will say something about Volaris. If you don't know, well, we're among the lowest cost airlines in the world. We're focused on make revenues through ancillaries, and we are a point-to-point network. So we pretty much fly point-to-point. We base a strategy against the buses, because in Mexico is a lot of bus travelers. So we go and look how we can connect point to point, and where the buses have a lot of the penetration. So we put up a flight there. We are one of the airlines with the fastest recovery during the COVID-19. And this is pretty much by the current market opportunities as the VFR. I see you have a question there, what a VFR is, visiting and family and relatives market. And well, we have a solid liquidity and the best position to deliver return of investment and capital. So we are one of the airlines with the best ROIC in the world. And well, a couple more data in the next slides. We're going to see. Another one. Well, we have 135 million passengers transported in the last 15 years. We just, our birthday was on the March 13th, so we turned out 15 years old. We have one of the youngest fleets in the Americas. We have 87 aircraft or Airbuses of the 320, 319 Airbuses. In 2020, we transport 14.7 million passengers, and we closed the year with 161 routes, 100 domestic and 61 international, mostly connecting Mexico and the US. We offer 68 airports, 43 domestics and 25 international. And we have we saw a lot of opportunity in Mexico City and grow Mexico City to different airports nationally and internationally. Well, on the next slide, so I want to go straight to the data. Well, and more general information, we have 85 exclusive routes. In January, we transport 1.6 million passengers, and we have a 73.9 load factor. And we have more than 300 daily operations. And 40% of our routes compete with the buses fares. So this is a strong strategy we have because we share the prices from the bus and catching a flight. The next one. Let's see how is the behavior of the last years on the domestic and international passengers behavior. If we can see, we came from the 2018 and 2019 in the domestic with more than 50 million of passengers within Mexico. And then we have a drop more than 28 million only in 2020. We have 38% of that share, and we recover because of the faster recovery. We focus on put more capacity around. You remember March, April, and May was really, really bad months during the pandemic, was the first 3 months. But afterwards, we focused first and have the biosecurity measures and procedures and put it in place. We were one of the first airlines to put in place all these procedures to biosecurity. And then we start putting back a lot of capacity into the market because we have a lot of communication with the tourism boards and everybody, including in the tourism change, to see how they see the growth and the recovery during the next months. And then that's why we catch more passengers during that date. And international, if you can see, we came out from in 2019 with 47 million. In the 2020, we closed the year with close to 20 million only. And in January, we see a drop of only 1.9 passengers internationally in Mexico. And this is mostly, remember when in the US there was the restriction with the test, the COVID test, and saying it's going to be a quarantine period. And that affect a little bit the first 3 weeks or the last 2 weeks of the month, but then we see a recovery for the next months. In the next slide, we're going to see how is the market, the volume market during the last months. And you can see during August on the 20th, we start increasing and we see a huge increase in September, October, and we got a good trend up to December. And then in January happens what I already explained into the US markets. If you can see how we see year over year, we see a lot of an increase and then a drop in January as well. But like I said, we saw a strong recovery for this May and June, and we're going to see a good summer. Actually, we are very positive to see a good summer, specifically in California, because if we compare how is the behavior in the first 3 months of the year, we see places like Texas, Vegas having a better recovery. And in the first 3 months, California was the slowest one. But we think it's because the restriction in California were more stronger than the other states. But how we see how it's increasing the vaccine in California, we see the bookings recovery for the cities we're flying out of California. In the next slide, please. This is what we're going to operate in California. We have 6 cities in California connecting 10 direct destinations. We connect Mexico City and Central America as well. We connect El Salvador and Guatemala and Costa Rica with direct flights. We had more than 4,000 flights to California in 2020, and we transport more than 500,000 passengers only to California. In the next slide, please. Okay, well, we connect right now 35 cities connecting between California and Mexico. And this is very interesting because we have routes nobody else flights, like, for example, Los Angeles, Uruapan, Los Angeles, Oaxaca, Fresno to Mexico City, Fresno to Guadalajara. We start flying those. Bajío to Sacramento, Zacatecas to San Jose, California, San Jose, California to Mexico City. So we grow this. And the other strong part of the connecting the Mexican population into California is to Tijuana. Why Tijuana? Because we are the #1 carrier flying into Tijuana, and we have a lot of capacity put in there. So a lot of people go to Tijuana and use the CBX to cross the border. I'm going to be more specific about the CBX and Tijuana market in a couple of slides. Next, please. Okay, and just to mention, we just opened to California new routes in the last 4 months. In December, we opened Mexico to Ontario, Mexico to Fresno, Mexico, San Jose, California, and Morelia, Fresno, Bajío, San Jose, California, and Zacatecas, San Jose, California. So this is a brand new route we opened on the end of 2020, and we are on the middle of the ramp up. So if you guys are listening, we need help to push these markets. We know they're going to be huge markets for you guys in California, connecting more cities into Mexico City with direct flights, not only to Guadalajara, where we used to fly before. And going back into in Tijuana, we can see how is the recovery in Tijuana. In January, this January, we restart with 101% recovery versus last year, January last year. So we're pretty much operating 100% the capacity out of the Tijuana market. And this is without having open 100% CBX. Let me explain this in a little more detail. CBX, you know, is a bridge you can cross when you arrive in Tijuana, and you can use the border to cross into San Diego, Chula Vista area. So right now, the restriction for the CBX is the same one if you want to use a border, a land border. So it's only the CBX is only going to be used with the U.S. citizens, permanent residents, of you have an essential travel to make. So right now is how is the CBX working? But with this recovery we're seeing, and the more capacity we're going to put into the Tijuana market, when CBX open back to all the passengers, international passengers, Mexican can use it, we're going to see a shift from people flying to other destinations into the United States and go back to go and visit South California. We're pretty much sure about that. I have a meeting with my team working in Southern California and Tijuana area, and they tell us there see a lot of people asking where they're going to open the CBX again. And the people working in Guadalajara, Bajío, Morelia, all those places, they want to go into Tijuana. And we have a lot of questions about when they can use the CBX to cross. So this is a really important thing, because when they open, I can see a positive trend on increased passengers cross using the CBX just to go to Southern California. And well, thank you so much. I try to be quick, but in general terms, we see a positive trends. We planning to estimate May and June be more than 79% on all the routes to California for those months. So those are really, really good numbers, seeing the environment we're living right now. So yes, I agree with everybody. We're seeing the light on the end of the tunnel. Thank you, guys. Esteban, going to you.
Okay, thank you, and hello to everyone. And I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with all of you and to talk about the travel industry from the GDS perspective, okay? And first of all, I want to say that I feel very well connected with California because my daughter, my princess, has been living in LA for the last 3 years. So in the past, I travel a lot to California, but in the last 3 years, believe me, that I spent a lot of time in your favorite state. But talking about the recovery inside, I don't know if all of you are familiar with Sabre, but the core business for our company is to bring IT solutions to the travel ecosystem. Basically, we are focused on the airlines, okay, on hotel chains, car rental companies, and travel agency association. And talking about the recovery, please, if we can move to the next slide, okay. It's very hard to talk about the recovery because, as we know, we are still having more questions than answers, and no one has the crystal ball, okay? But definitely, we have been trying to be able to combine different metrics together just to have more a clear view about the recovery. And that is why I will be talking about 4 important dimensions of the recovery, because that's an opportunity to evaluate the recovery through 4 different lenses. Number 1, it's very important to understand the COVID-19 evolution, the number of the cases, and what is happening in every market. Number 2, we really need to understand what is happening talking about the government action, because every market, every country has different rules, okay? Talking about some restrictions. Supplier actions, as Miguel mentioned before, Tere and all the panelists, they mentioned before, we really need to measure the airline capacity, just to be clear if we have the seats available, because it's very important that we cannot assume that all the destinations today, they have the connectivity available, okay? Because that is not true based on the pandemic impact. And last but not least, of course, that we really need to connect with the traveler or the consumer sentiment. They really want to travel what they believe, because today, and very similar to the chapter 11 issue that we faced many years ago, now it's very important to collaborate, to revamp or to recover the trust of the travelers, okay? So, but talking about the COVID-19 evaluation, and of course that I'm going to try to bring like a global perspective, but at the same time, I will be connecting what is happening with the Mexican market, okay? In the global market, in the global view. But talking about the COVID-19 cases, of course that we need to be transparent, saying that this is a real issue. We are still in the middle of the roller coaster, second peaks, third peaks. So it's hard, okay, what is happening in the world now, but we have been evaluating the performance. The good news, now we have the vaccine on the table. The vaccine is a reality. And that is why, talking about Mexico, we feel confident that combining the number of the cases plus the vaccine report that they did in the past, and especially the forecast for the next month, Mexico never has been in the red flag, okay? Very important challenge. I really want to be transparent with all of you, but they were not on the red flag, very similar to other markets, okay? In the Latin American and the Caribbean situation. But again, we really need to continue monitoring what is happening with the COVID performance. Moving to the next slide, please. So talking about the government restrictions, because this is very important for the travel industry. And this is very hard today. I have been traveling my whole professional life, okay? And I thought that I was very familiar with the restrictions, okay? By the countries when I need to travel, but now it's a different world. If I need to go to Chile, now Chile is not an option because the border is 100% closed. If I want to go to Uruguay, I need to be a resident or Uruguayan citizen just to have access, okay, to get in. So every market has different restrictions, but something that has been very particular for Mexico, no restriction at all, okay? So the people, if they have the seats available, and if they really want to travel, Mexico is very friendly, is open because they have different mechanisms, okay, to control the entry of the passenger. And this has been one of the factors that has been helping a lot Mexico to lead the recovery process in Latin America. But I'm going to show you some numbers, okay, in the next slide about it. But no restriction at all. And talking about the supplier actions, okay, and the airline capacity and the seats are available. Sorry, but in this slide, I know that we have too many numbers and colors. But here, I just want to highlight that based on our core business, we have we're able to measure the airline capacity in the short, in the medium, and in the long term. And I just want to highlight that talking about Latin America and the Caribbean, in Mexico, last week, April 6th, April 5 week, the total seats available, the number was very close to 80%. 80% versus 2019 numbers, seats available. So this is a very, very high number. And we are projecting that probably at the end of the second quarter of 2021, or probably at the beginning of third quarter 2021, Mexico is going to be very close to 100% of all the seats available versus 2019, which is amazing. Believe me, this is not happening in all the markets, okay? No, the recovery is not the same. And I really want to share with you that talking about the recovery, in Sabre, we are measuring the business by 4 different regions: APAC, EMEA, okay, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, and North America. North America is simple, United States and Canada. And North America market and Latin America and the Caribbean market, we have been leading the recovery process, okay? We have better numbers than EMEA and APAC. And talking about Latin America, just to give you some number, because we need to put some numbers as a reference always. In the first quarter of 2021, the Latin America and the Caribbean, we were able to reach very close to 32% of the total size of 2019, 32. This is the general average. But only Mexico, they reached 55% of the 2019 numbers. And in last March, Mexico exceeds 60%, 61, 62% of the total size of 2019. So, of course, that we need to be very transparent that we are still facing a huge challenge, talking about the pandemic impact, and we are in the recovery process, but it's fair to say that Mexico is leading the recovery process, okay, for different factors and reasons that I'm going to highlight in the last slide. But talking about the traveler sentiment, next slide, please. So we have a very important network as the leading GDS in the region, and we took advantage of our presence just to conduct an important survey at the end of last year, and 2 months ago, we reinforced the survey just to try to measure the customer sentiment. And we have very important information, but talking about Mexico, I really want to highlight this. Many Latin Americans, okay, are eager to get back on the road once travel restrictions are lifted, okay, on when the airline capacity is available. But talking about Mexico, in Latin America and the Caribbean, this is the country with the most positive travel sentiment, okay? The people, they really want to travel. Why? Because of course, domestic market is leading the recovery process. Mexico is a huge market, but it's not only about the size of the market. Talking about the hotel infrastructure, the airline, the buses industry, Mexico, I mean, the offer is very important. So the people in Mexico, they never stop to travel and they really want to continue traveling. The second important topic about the survey, of course, security and schedule flexibility is very important. The airlines and the hotel, they need to offer some flexibility for the passenger, okay? Because sometimes we have some last minute changes. And of course, safety measures are very important, but prices is still very important, okay, for the Mexicans, which totally makes sense, okay? But talking about the Mexican market, and I can talk about it because I have been living in Mexico for the last 15 years, form of payment options is always an important, value for the Mexican market. We have all the credit card available, the famous Mexican installment. So in all the offers that we have in Mexico as a country, it's very important to connect the product with the form of payment. And that is why I believe that pricing is not going to be an issue for the Mexicans. And last but not least, of course, the people, they feel more comfortable with short haul flight instead of long haul flight. But keep in mind, this is not about domestic and international. This is about short versus long haul flight. And California represents for the Mexican a short haul flight. It's like a domestic flight. It's very close, which is a very unique strength for the Mexican market. The geographical position make a huge difference. It's not the same for the Brazilian. For instance, Brazilians, they love to go to the US, but this is not a short flight. This is not a domestic flight for the Brazilian. It's a real international flight. For Mexican, they feel the US is very close, and we have been evaluating, what is happening between Mexico and US, and definitely talking about the offer, the airline capacity, the seats available, and the reservation that we can see, all the booking that we can see in the GDS, the traffic between Mexico and US is leading the recovery. And talking about the US, 2 main states, California and Florida, okay? Because those are the most important destinations for the Mexican, because this is very aspirational, okay? For all the Mexicans to go to California. And last but not least, I just want to share with you very quickly the most important trend that we can see now, talking about the recovery process. Please, next slide. Thank you. So now it's not about the new normal, it's about the now normal trend that we can see in the travel industry. Number one, deglobalization. Again, the people, they really want to travel, but they are going to evaluate short-haul flight instead of long-haul flight, okay? Number two, leisure and essential traveler, they are leading the recovery process versus the corporate business, for instance, okay? This is real, and this is going to continue happening at least for the last 2021 and 2022. Market evolution, the people, they are looking for, now they are more familiar with the e-commerce option, not only for the travel industry, all the delivery companies, Amazon, or we have Mercado Libre and Pedidos Ya, whatever, all of these companies, they have been growing a lot because now the traveler, they are looking for e-commerce option. And I believe California has a very important, strength here because all of your content is available through e-commerce tools, which is not happening with all the destinations. They are not 100% prepared for the e-commerce market. And last but not least, of course, the consolidation is going to continue happening in the travel industry in both sides, airline side or agency side as well. And last but not least, I just want to finish my participation here, connecting all of you with Mexico. Okay, and just reinforcing that Mexico is, of course, is in the recovery process. The answer is yes. They are leading the recovery process in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is very important to highlight, but because we cannot assume that all the countries, they have the same performance and they have the same seats available and the same numbers. No, Mexico is leading the recovery process. This is very important. The Mexicans, they really want to travel. They have options. As Miguel mentioned before, Volaris, they have been doing an amazing job, but a lot of connectivity between US and Mexico, no? In both sides, and the Americans, no? You really want to travel to Mexico. We have been very well connected for many, many years, okay? It's a very common destination for both countries. And I believe that now it's our responsibility to bring our contribution to the recovery to the industry. And I really want to invite all of you to continue evaluating the possibility to invest in the Mexican market. And of course, to continue investing in the travel industry because we are facing a huge challenge. The answer is yes, but this is an amazing industry and we need the support from all the travel ecosystem players. And again, thanks for the opportunity. And now, Leona, I want to invite you to take control of the present, please.
I think I'm going to bring everyone back. Excellent. This was perfect. Hopefully we delivered on the initial promise, and that is to give you a little bit of a state of the state in terms of the Mexico market and illustrate the potential. Strategically, or from Visit California's perspective, I just wanted to share that we've paused our efforts in market for a short period of time, specifically April through October 2020. But we have been working with the team at GMS, Alex, Joaquin, Carlos, and everyone on just making sure that the market and all the key players from a trade perspective, airline perspective, all the key agencies and tour operators, and obviously also media, consumer trade and influencers have the most accurate information about our state. And that's one of the things that's when we come in as an industry as well. We need to make sure that the industry on Mexico side understand that we're ready or will be very ready to receive them in California very soon, and what experiences are available and how they can still sample our beautiful destinations. So again, we hope for greater collaboration with the industry. As Heather alluded to, we'll be doing a lot of custom data collection on the market that we would like to share with you, and building upon our trade and PR strategy with hopefully direct-to-consumer advertising that will be targeting those that will be ready to travel in a near future. So again, with that, thank you all for all your insights. It was truly incredible well of information. I quickly want to recognize the team at GMS, specifically Joaquin and Carlos, who pulled it all together. Thank you, gentlemen. And now we have a few minutes to address a few of your questions. They're coming in fast and furious. So I'm going to start with the first one, and that might be for Teresa, but really anyone, please share your perspective. What is the perception in the Mexican market of how California handled the pandemic compared to other destinations in the world?
Thank you very much for the question. Well, we don't have a specific information on in our surveys on how this was handled, but you can see basically a general overview that the United States, particularly in the last few months, has been amazing in the display and the rollout of the vaccines. So it is really perceived like an example of what can be done if you put your mind to it. And of course, California, the perception that California is welcoming to Mexico, and that the California dream is going ahead in the country as a whole, and this perception about technology and also about sustainability and responsible travel, I think is very strong and very likely to be growing in the next months. And as Carlos was saying, many people want to go out of the comfort zone, look at the trend setters. So that is, I think, that together with education, pursuing the personal interest, wellness, not only doing well, but also contributing to society. That perception of California and of the opportunities to be a responsible traveler, I think are very important points for communication with Mexicans, and particularly with the younger generation.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much, Teresa. Heather, anything we're seeing in our data pool?
So Destination Analysts actually did an international state of the international traveler study, and I cannot recall exact numbers, but I can tell you that for many European countries, they seem to remember more when the US was not doing well, and seem to be knocking us a little bit more on handling. The Mexican traveler market actually gave us much better marks, and maybe because they're more up to date on how we're doing now. So it was a stark difference where definitely our reputation did not take as big of a hit among the Mexican market versus particularly the European market.
Perfect. Great. I'm going to go to the next question. What emerging social platforms, possibly for Carlos, do Mexican travelers prefer? And how do California destinations tailor their content to these new channels?
Can you repeat the question? I got lost at the
Any
end.
new emerging social media platforms that you can see in your market, and how would California destination tailor their content to those?
Definitely. Well, podcasts are growing so much in Mexico. Last year, I think we had an outbreak of podcasts. So that would be a new platform. I mean, I know they're not new, but a lot of people are getting into that. And wow, it's not only because I'm here, but I'm a huge fan of how Visit California has always handled their social media. And even here, like being at home and seeing all the Instagram stories and so on, it just, I don't know, like Visit California is doing it very well. It's providing a lot of knowledge. It's just getting us all excited to go out and start exploring again.
Perfect. This is a good question. I was wondering as well about that, Miguel or possibly Esteban as well. How has the booking timeframe changed in the Mexican market? Have you seen any changes currently or maybe into the near future?
Esteban, you have some data? Or?
Well, of course, from the GDS perspective, we can see a completely different trend than in the past, because in the past, we have a very good mix considering short, medium, and long-term reservation. Now it's more about short-term. In some cases, medium-term, but now the people, they are not looking for option on Christmas. This is not happening, okay, anymore. because of course that we are still having more question than answer, no, about the future. But it's very good that we can see some positive number talk about important holidays. Okay, if they say, okay, Christmas is, I mean, many weeks, but some particular holiday only 3 or 2 days, we can see some peak. But definitely we are still in the short-term planification, and we are monitoring that they will be evaluating medium-term options and long-term. But this is going to take some time, not only for the seats available, because again, the seats, they are available. It's not an issue, okay? The challenge is for the healthy perspective, no? And especially for the government restriction, because they really want to be clear, again, that they have flexibility to change the flights and the hotel reservation, but the people, they don't want to have like a travel plan for the next 6 or 8 months. It's more about a short-term planification.
Esteban, even though we saw that behavior on pretty much the last year until March, we agree with that. But in March we have the huge anniversary promo in Volaris with the 15%, and we have 80%, and we try to increase the long term. So we see a lot of people booking for the end of the year and next year, because we open the itinerary until October for next year. So the people start thinking like, okay, this is so cheap, I want to purchase, and I know, well, this will go on, and vaccine and everything is going to be there. But we saw a huge increase on the short term, something we didn't see a lot in Volaris, and we have a lot of short. So it's short and long term. The middle, I agree with Esteban, nobody's person like thinking, oh, I'm going to fly the next month, I'm going to fly in 2 months. They're like pretty much not yet there. And that's how we see that. But it's more pushing toward make a huge discount for the future, so we can sell a lot in the future. So we see a little reactive. The response for the longer term, it was price-wise. So if we lower the prices, the people are willing to do it, but from December or more in advance. So that's why we open the itinerary until October 2022, so we can start incentivate the market and the people start thinking on flight again into the future.
Excellent. I'm going to stay with you, Miguel. This question came during your presentation. Do you make distinction between California and the CBX, or do you include your CBX projections as part of California projections?
No, for the flights into California are only the flying, arriving on the California destination, the 6 cities we're flying. And for the Tijuana market projections, are based on a little bit of the mix, how we put the capacity into Tijuana, how much market we bring from South California, try to fly out the beach destinations into Mexico. And we're expecting, when we have the certainty CBX is going to be open, we know from a fact we need to increase capacity to Tijuana, because a lot of people is going to start flying to cross the border from Mexico into the United States, if they're Mexican citizens. So that's why. But for the answer, the purpose of the answer is that for the cities in the US, is only the flights and the people flying into those airports, and for the Tijuana is the Tijuana market, and a mix between the South California and the Tijuana markets.
Perfect. We probably have time for 2 more questions. So all of you get your crystal balls out, because the question is, when will CBX open? Do you think?
I don't know. Every month they change, and right now it's April 21st, the 22nd. But in the last year, every month they're increasing. This is Miguel's opinion and what I see on the future. It's like, the way I see it is, we see a lot of people, and I don't know, the people in Mexico are going to agree with me, a lot of we're going to call medical tourism. People going into the United States to get vaccine. And this is from a fact. So a lot of people are flying into Texas with this less restriction, to Vegas to get vaccine. So my thinking is, the land border is going to still close until the United States reach pretty much more than 70% of the population vaccine. And they try to push the people going flying to the United States to get vaccine, because you generate more tourism in there, because the people going to get a vaccine, they have to pay hotel, they have to pay a restaurant, they have to go and do shopping while they are there. So it's more tourism. The people crossing by land, they pretty much can go one day and get back. So they are not tourism enforcement. So that's what Miguel Aguiñiga is, again, it's not something we say. It's like, I think after United States says that more 75% of the vaccine, and they increase the tourism flying to get vaccine, they will open the land. So I think what you see Heather, you put is like around June, very much there. So my prediction is June, July, maybe they can do it. But that's, I don't know. We don't have the crystal ball like you say, Lon.
We don't have the crystal ball, but my prediction is Alex pays here July 4th.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Excellent. Let's maybe take.
You want to
take-
make a bet?
Exactly. I was just going to say that we should do that. Well, with that, we are at time. We are going to close out again with huge thanks to all of you that came today, and hopefully, like I said, we delivered on the initial promises we made at the beginning of the webinar. Hopefully this was helpful. This was our first stop. As I said, our next stop will hopefully be UK sometimes in June. Please stay tuned. And all of the information we shared today and plus is on outlookforum.com website. Thank you again for your attention and have a great week.